Hello everyone and welcome back to SB Living. I'm SB and this is a place for slow, seasonal, and spiritual living where we celebrate food, faith, and family in the everyday. We've been having some weird days lately. It's winter, but if you look here, it looks pretty much almost like spring. So we've been having about a week of freezing temperatures and then another week of the 40s and the 50s, which after freezing temps feels pretty nice. And so I'm out here without even a coat on getting these clothes out. And this is the new normal now, and I think that as much as it might feel good, it also doesn't necessarily make sense, right? But it does allow us to continue with the routines that we love and that keep us grounded. And that's kind of the theme for this video, about that feeling of being grounded, that feeling of being complete, even when you never really feel like you have anything done. That feeling of completeness, of contentedness is really the goal, right? And if you're a parent like I am, a life of a mom, life of a working mom, you're always moving, you're always doing something, and sometimes you forget what you need to do, and so you get onto something else, and it's just that overpowering of the brain, right? And when you really need to find something to ground you, it's hard to pick. And I've come to terms with the fact, rather, that it's using what we already do in life to help us ground ourselves rather than finding something new. I think we can get caught up in so many things that we're looking for to give us the answer, for giving us peace, giving us some idea of what it would be like to finally breathe, right? And then what happens? We wound up buying something, buying more than one thing. We wound up starting a project or committing to something that you've never done before, and then feeling bad about it after because you can't keep up with it, or whatever you bought is on the side and you don't know where it is at some point. So why not use what you already have to do and turn it into something that is more like a graceful act? And for me, it's cooking. I hope it could be for you. I think it's not only something that serves the family and keeps us well fed, but it's like a therapy. It's very therapeutic, just knowing that these daily routines that have to be done anyway can be a source of peace. It can be a source of being able to just ground yourself in something that has nothing to do with what would otherwise give you stress. And so the first thing I'm making here is really comfort food. It's an apple crumble. It's very simple. I think apple pies, which is the quintessential fall item and maybe Christmas item for you, that's beautiful and it's great. I just don't have the patience to make the crust, and sometimes frozen crust I don't have the patience to defrost. So I like to make something I can just mix really easily, and it's apples with the spices and the maple syrup, and then the crumble is just oats mixed with some flour, brown sugar, and the same kinds of spices. And once you topple it all over and put it in the oven, it becomes gooey, it becomes warm, and it's just totally amazing, especially with all of this butter. I know that it may not be the healthiest, but it is exactly what you need when the weather is getting cold and you just want to have something that'll bring you home and make you feel like you're home. So it's easy to think about everything we have to do as being so busy, right? And I think that's such a charged word nowadays. Gosh, when somebody asks you, what are you doing? Or do you have time to do this? Would you like to go here? Everyone says, oh, I'm busy. And when we define what busy means nowadays, is it really that we're busy, or are we just so overwhelmed with everything that we just don't have the energy to do anything else? And I vote that most of us are on the latter end here. Being busy is a choice that we make, right? And what we define busy as is also a choice, because everyone has to do the same things. Everyone has to find a way to eat. Everyone has to keep themselves clean, keep the house clean, go to work, sleep, do chores. Everybody has to do that. And so what is everybody going to say? Well, I'm too busy for anybody else? Or are we just too detached from what we have to do, or rather who we should be with, that we forget how to engage in those relationships? And so I challenge you this Advent season, rather than saying, oh, I'm busy, think about, sure, what can I do to make space for this experience, for this person that maybe I would have otherwise not. I'm urging myself not to, but rather instead say yes and see what happens. All right, so it's rice and peas and jerk chicken time. And if you've been following me for a while, you know that a lot of my cuisine is usually Mediterranean. It's how I grew up. But when you marry someone who's not, and who's Caribbean, you learn how to make the food that they like and that they grew up with. And I'm pretty confident that I'm getting my skills there. I'm actually trying to make rice and peas in a pot this time. I'm experimenting with different ways. I know on the stove is the traditional way. No one's really had access to an oven when you're thinking about cooking in the country, right? But it is a new method here. If you've ever cooked rice in the oven before, please drop a hint about what works for you. But I am just doing the basics here. I'm putting together the onion and the garlic, and then the oil, putting the rice in with some coconut milk and the spices that would go with that, and then popping it in the oven just to have it steam pretty slowly. And this is a bunch of time, by the way. Having really good time is the key to really good rice and peas. And I'll tell you, when it says rice and peas, it's more like rice and beans. It's the kidney beans. It's depending on your Caribbean culture or heritage, whatever you say might be a little bit different with what you see on the plate. So definitely know what you're trying to cook and find the recipe that would go with it. So for the jerk, it is a marinade that I haven't necessarily made myself yet. I'm working on it, but otherwise I buy a really good brand to make sure I have the right marinade and the right flavor profile. So these chicken drumsticks have been sitting in that marinade for, I want to say, about overnight, about a day. And I'm just putting a little bit extra on before it goes inside of the oven. And again, that's just dinner. That's it. I mean, it's not really that hard. If I were to make everything from scratch, obviously it would be a little bit more involved, but it's otherwise pretty simple. And when I tell you how simplicity is where it's at, this is one of those things. It actually takes less than you think to feel more than you are. And if you think about that concept, it is really through these simple acts that we feel the most ourselves, that we feel the most authentic. And I think that's what this season of Advent's really about as well. It's just how little can you actually get away with while you can still enjoy that level of happiness that you want, that you're aiming for. And so these dishes here, these simple dinners, these simple meals are an example of that. It actually takes less than you think to feel more you, to feel more authentically you. So we'll be making some shrimp scampi, I think is what most people would call this, but otherwise it's just shrimp with some vegetables and pasta all tossed in the big skillet pan that you see so much in these videos. And again, these are just vegetables that are on hand. They're just hanging out, waiting to be used, and it's one of those very easy, quick dinners that can come together in less than half an hour if you're really good at timing, but otherwise it's more like 45 minutes. I've never really believed in those 30-minute meal type ideas. Nothing ever takes 30 minutes, but it is something that's just really good and just easy to make. The more garlic, the better in this instance. I think when you're dealing with seafood or fish, very few ingredients are the key, but using enough of them so that you could actually have flavor is the secret. So keep that in mind. The less ingredients you use, the more you really need to use them in certain amounts so that you can get the full effect there. And again, just things you learn, as you do them. And I can't even count how many meals I've made at this point since, being an adult or learning how to cook. But it's just that ability to consolidate all of what you learned, and things just become second nature. And it's just like, I think that's the life of a true adult there, when you can just trust your own instincts. That's a beautiful thing. And if you're not there yet, believe me, it'll happen. And when it'll happen, when you can actually wake up and just trust your own gut and your own instincts about what you need to do, how you're going to do it, and you don't experience any stress about it. Oh man, what a beautiful feeling, right? And I think that's when you reach your peak level of adulthood. So if you're there, you know what I mean. And if you're not there, you'll get there. Don't worry about it. But always keep learning, always keep moving, always keep doing something new. Try what you think won't work and see what it'll teach you, and get out of your comfort zone. And it's just those things that I'm telling you, that's really the secret. There's no other book or plan or journey you need to go on except to just do something new, do what might be a little weird to you, and see what happens. That's the best way to learn things in life, and that's the best way to see how much you can take and what you can learn from all of those experiences. A little tip for any households that experience seafood allergies like mine, please just be aware that you could always put the seafood on the side. You could always cook it in a pan and add for those who'd like. You could do some other sort of protein or meat, or just nothing at all. Leave the sauce by itself and you could still enjoy this. You don't necessarily have to amalgamate everything into one pan, but on those few nights when maybe a certain someone is not home, man, just have fun and be able to enjoy a dish that you may not have otherwise. But again, you could always separate everything and then toss them later, depending on the preferences or the allergies for everyone else. So darkness seems to be part of the Christmas season, ironically so, right? But those early mornings and then those early evenings when the night comes or the night is staying and just the sun is just barely making a showing usually are the better days to get some of the cozy baking in. And about twice a month, as you know, I get the bulk of the baking done. I get enough bread for about 2 weeks. That's 2 loaves, and 1 loaf lasts us about a week, a little bit less, before we have to get into the next one. And a set of bagels that I make for myself. The sourdough bagels, I usually make about 8 to 10 at a time. And, some little treat for myself. I like to make things differently, and I am using the same bagel recipe, so you'll see me prep those the same way. But I am doing a little bit of a different, dusting, if you will. I'm out of the everything bagel seasoning, but I do have za'atar, which is I would say an Egyptian or Middle Eastern herb blend. I wouldn't say spice. It is made out of ground sumac and sesame seeds, which is a very unique flavor. If you have it, and you might have put it on some poultry or some soups or some salads based on some recipes you've had, definitely try it on toasted bread. It's great as a dipping if you just put a little bowl of olive oil and some za'atar on top. It's a really great way to flavor your bread, and so I'm definitely putting it on my bagels for this week, and you'll see how just delicious that they look towards the end. So what actually brings you a sense of peace, a level of contentment, happiness, just that area of life that you just want to settle and feel just at ease? I think we've come to the conclusion that, it's easier than we think, but then harder for us to do, right? Because there's no really good way to get to that point except to live your life as simply as possible, but that also means you got to take care of everything you need to. I think you can do both. I think it's a matter of perspective. I think that when we get a little bit too obsessed about the stuff, right? When I mean about the stuff, I mean the actual stuff around us, or feeling like these solutions are found in objects rather than just actions and our own mindset. I think we become more obsessed with the fact of whether we're doing it right rather than actually just being. And so I guess for this season, these next couple of days, this month, where we're kind of in this deep moment of reflection, think about what you're doing rather than what you're getting, and then you'll be in a space to reflect on what you're going to be able to receive. Because if you're focusing on things to get, to buy, right, to provide, to show off, to share with others, you're in that mode of presenting rather than being in a mode of receiving. It's a very different mindset. So if you're seeking to be in that space of receiving, definitely think about what you can limit, what you can purge, what you can trim away, what you can share with others that are not centered around physical items, or how you present certain things, whether it's yourself, whether it's an experience, if you're trying to, get together and it could only be done at the fanciest restaurant. How about just inviting someone over to the house? How about saying, hey, let's just, come over and have company. And again, I always laugh when I think about that because I feel like that's just, gosh, days gone by, right? But that's usually when people were at their most at ease and when they were most comfortable around each other. So why not get back to that type of being, that type of sharing, those types of relationships when you can just pop on over and say, hey, I'm visiting, right? If you surround yourself with good people and offer more than what you're actually receiving, you'll actually receive more than you think, if that makes sense. If we really focus on just providing those spaces where we're just our genuine self, where it's not focused on objects and it's just focused on the actual presence of ourselves with the other person, not only will you be sharing a beautiful gift with another person, which is your time and your attention, but you're also going to be receiving the same thing, and you'll feel so much happier with the time that you spent, the quality of time that you spent with that person, that you'll actually want to do that more. And isn't that everything that we would love to do more of, right? It's what we've been missing. It's what we feel has been such a gap in our lives. And so if you think about what you can take advantage of this holiday season, if you are meeting up with family or friends you haven't seen in a while, take it as a cue to maybe start things a little bit differently so that you can maintain them over the longer term, so that you're not just seeing each other just for holidays, but you're actually seeing each other because you genuinely enjoy each other's company. So the trick to these bagels over here is to boil them a little bit with a pot full of simmering water and some honey. I think you could also put molasses or maple syrup or whatever sweetener you'd like. It just gives it a nice sweet outer crust before it gets into the oven, but it also allows for the herbs or anything that you're doing on top, seeds, other seasoning, whatever you would like, to actually stick to the bagel. And so when you see me in a minute dip them in that za'atar, you're going to see it all stick to the top of the bagel. And so when it bakes, it becomes not only the bagel actually baking and getting fluffy and whatnot, but the seasoning also settles right on top. So nothing like pancakes for breakfast, right? I always do it, and this time around I'm doing a little bit special. I'm actually going to be putting in some chocolate chips and serving it with some whipped cream, something special for Christmas time. And it's very kid friendly, and I think having dessert for breakfast like this almost is what every kid dreams about, and heck, it's what I dream about too, I'm not gonna lie. So I'm not making it just for the kids, I'm making it for myself too, and I know you would too. It's just the easiest way of making breakfast into something special and sweet and perfect right before church. So if you're a parent, you know there's always a little compromise you have to make, right? If we're going to have dessert for breakfast, you're going to have some fruit along with it. So whether it's a banana or it's some berries or an apple, whatever it is, everyone gets about a little bit of fruit, about half a plate, a couple of slices with their pancakes. It makes me feel better and less guilty about serving up all this sugar. But hey, listen, once a week, I think we could all go for a really nice breakfast like this. So I wish you a beautiful Advent, and I hope that you found little gems of wisdom in this video that you can take with you, that resonate with you, and that inspire you to have a beautiful week at home. I'll see you next week. God bless.